me on my shadow. Ah, can you? What? 1,000 gazelles, please.
What?
Speed of 1,000 gazelles. Come on, speed up, speed up. 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon. My name is Vaughan. I work for Didas in Llanelli, and I'm going to do a session on transplanting or planting succulents, these little fellas here, into jars like this.
I'm Natasha. I'm just going to be joining today virtually so that I can get a good idea of how Vaughan does these. He's been talking about them for a while now and I've never seen him do them, so I'm joining virtually. Unlike the other sessions that we've run so far, we're not going to be able to send the equipment out to do these in packs, but it's an activity that, like Vaughan was just going to explain, the things that you need for a cheap or even free, and Vaughan's going to give some ideas as to where you can buy those from then, if you want to make them yourself. Is that alright, Vaughan?
Yeah, that's fine. Shall I crack on with making them then? Now this is just an old coffee jar with some building sand, ordinary sand, soil and a bit of coloured sand, and with some nice looking stones in. I'm going to start using this here solar glass. Usually they're in the garden, light shines, fluorescent, but when they've gone and they're no longer useful, you can upgrade them to one of these. And what we need first is, I get my coloured sand at the cheapest place, to be honest, until we start our art classes back again, is Amazon. You look at about 5 or 6 different colours. Tasha has got some pictures with other glasses and jars with other colours in. They'll be added to this website. So what I'll do is, I'll put a blue bag down on a table so it doesn't make a mess at home, either if you're doing it in the house or if you're doing it outside. But I usually do them in summer outside. You can do them in this weather, but do them inside and cover your table with a bag. You can buy your sand, your coloured sand. I think the best place I found, you'll get about 5 or 6 different ones. I forgot how much it was. It was below £20, and you get 5 or 6 bags of these. Usually it's up to about there. I've used a lot, up to about there. You can get them off Amazon. Use builder's sand. You can get that from any DIY place or a friend. And I've got some silver sand, which is children's play sand. You can get that anywhere. That's cheap as chips to buy. And I've also got some coloured stones, different coloured stones. You can get them, and bits of slate. You can get them either in your own garden or down at the seaside, or somebody's. If you have a friend who's got a lot of chippings in the driveway or the garden, you can pick out some nice stones there. And if they're too big, what I do is put in my garage, put them on the bench on a solid base, and tap it with a hammer with a cloth over it, so that you can't cut yourself or get any in your eyes. And just tap it, and it makes them smaller, like these little fellas in here. Yeah, that's what I've done with them. Thank you, Tash. The tools that I'm using to make these succulents in a jar is, this is a spray bottle. You can get that from Home Bargains, 50p. You will need that. I've got a tamper, not tamping annoyed, tamping down the soil and the sand. And I've got some long nose tweezers there to go into the jar to pick and to plant. And I've got a skewer, a kebab skewer, a stainless steel one, so I can go into the sand and go right through all the levels, make a little hole and put the succulents in. You also need a spoon, because you spoon your stuff out of the jar into it and you can level it off. Those are all the tools that you need for now. Baby, 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 baby. None of this cut stuff's going on YouTube, just the proper stuff.
Yeah.
Right. What we're going to do with this to start with, we're going to get some builder's sand that I prepared earlier. What we do is we spoon it into the vessel, the jar or the glass bowl. Put so much in. And now what we do with that then, to get it like this, as this is one I did earlier, you can see where there's, in the bottom there's building sand, then there's play sand, then there's soil, then there's the coloured sand, then the succulent and stones. But I'll show you how to do that step by step, and it'll look just like these little fellas in here. So we'll put that to one side. And what we must do with the sand, each application, meaning each layer I do put in, I will have to wet it. That is why you do need one of these on a spray setting. We'll just wet it first, and now the reason why I'm wetting it is so it'll compact down and become hard. This is what I use for tamping, extendable. Anything will do. A 6-inch nail on a piece of wood, tap it in and use that. All you need to do is just tap it down gently, go around the sides first, tap it down, and then you will end up with a level. As you go up, a level instead of a dip and a dip. Which reminds me, you can bleed the coloured sand into the other sands, but that's a bit difficult for the first time, so we'll stick to the basic side. So that's the builder's sand, first of all. The second sand is the play sand, which some people use it to put in between block paving, some use it for the kiddies play sand, but we're going to use it for this because it's a lighter sand and it gives a different level as it's going up and a different colour. And we do the same with this. We'll spoon it in bit by bit until we get equal amount of what was already in the jar. That's why you've got to have a blue paper down, because if you're doing it at home, you'll get into trouble if you do that. But luckily, I'm at work and I've already got this down. So, I am making a mess, Natasha. I'm glad you picked up on that. Put some more in. It's just trial and error. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. You can put in as much as you want, and you shake it like that, or you can tap it and it levels it off. And then what we do is put the lid back on there, because we don't want any more mistakes, do we? So the lid goes back on, and then the best way to spray this is hold it like that, away from any electrical equipment at home, and spray it like that. You'll get an even spray, and if you can, like I'm doing, and I didn't do this before I started doing these last year, just turn it in your hand as you would a boiled egg or a golf ball. Excellent. Now what you might see at the sides, I don't know if you can see it, some of the sand has gone up. So all you do is just spray it gently, and the sand goes down. You end up with a perfect line. It might not be in the same place all the way around, but if it dips a bit, it's a perfect line. And sometimes you can make these so they're like that. You see how that doesn't move? You can do them offset in the bottom and coloured sand on the top, but that's a bit more difficult. But for today's session, we'll just do this one. What comes next is soil. We've all got soil. If we haven't got any soil, I'm sure you can take a bit off a bit of wasteland or somebody's garden. What I do with this is, obviously in summer when it's dry, I sieve it and I tap it into a big blue bag like that, then I decant it into a small bag like this. Because when you use soil, there's all sorts of other micronisms in it that grow.
What?
There's other micro things in it that grow, and you don't want grass and weeds coming up in there. So I sieve mine so there's no insects in it, there's no weeds, no nothing. Thank you for that support, Tasha. I appreciate that.
I just wanted to add as well that you don't want to take soil from someone's garden without their permission.
Oh yes, you. Oh well, I would obviously think that you would have permission. But if you are going to take it from somebody's garden, you must ask permission. You can't be a soil snaffler. That's just not on. Now with the soil, the soil that goes in here now, eventually, the succulents will go in that, but it will go through the coloured sand first. As we go along, you will know what I'm on about, and I've actually made another bit of a mess because I've mixed the whole, but it's on the blue plastic, so it's not really a mess. Now you'll need about the same amount of soil, or just a bit more, because that's what will be feeding your succulents. But you see how fine it is? That is how you want it, so it just pours in. You don't want it damp, and you don't want it with any insects in it for now. But if you have it outside, under a shelf or a lean-to where the water can't get into it, you'll find out that the odd spider, birds will come round in the morning, sparrows, robins, and they'll come round, and usually any insects that are in there, they eat them out. And what we do now is same again, shake. We shake it. And now I'm going to tamp it down. The reason for this is because if you don't tamp it down, if you added water without tamping it, it would mix into the sand below. It would not stay rigid. And what you want is it to bind together like fingers in a glove. You don't want it separate. We just do this. There's no rush. Take your time. If you're doing this at home, what I usually do is I'll have a coffee, a couple of coffees, put a bit of music on. Music of your choice, obviously. Mine would be the Rat Pack or anything from the early 70s would do me. The spoon, I will put it in the jar and I will just gently go over what I've just tamped down, just to be sure that it's solid. Because we don't want it mixing in with the sand that I'm going to put in the top of it now. But anything you're not sure, to be honest with you, anything you're not sure of, just put each level in, tamp it down, wet it a bit, tamp it down. You can't go wrong. And if, like me, I did one, didn't tamp it down, and the coloured sand bled through, and afterwards it looked nice. So even though it wasn't purposely done, it did look nice. What we do again, we hold it away from any electrical instruments and we give it a good spraying, for want of a better word, because that will be feeding the succulents. Succulents don't like a lot of water, but they've got to have some. And what I use for a base, because it's round, because obviously it would roll over. This base here, that is the top of a Dewey Egbert's coffee jar. If you take the plastic thing out, some people use them for tea lights, like myself. And they're also good that if that is outside in the summer and it's going to rain, you can also do that. But what I use it for is a base like that. Because you can turn it any angle. When you get better at doing this, you probably will start turning them and putting your sand and your soil in that way, wetting it and tamping it down, because you will get a totally different effect from it. I'm going to tamp it down one more time with a spoon to make sure. I'll go around the edges now on the inside because we don't want any soil sticking up, do we, on the edges. And what I mean by that is that if you look at my friends that I did for my manager, is there's hardly any soil coming up. Something must have got in there, an insect or something, but we want no soil there, no soil there at the sides. We want it all, on this one, all green, but something's got in there and moved it about, probably a money spider or some sort of insect, yeah? But that's what we're looking for. The more you do, the better at it you will get. And also, this is great for lockdown for the kids. Any glass jars will do. Any sort of coffee cup, jars with Uncle Ben's flavourings in, any sort of jar at all. A vinegar jar, I use a vinegar bottle for some plants that have a long stem. I'll use a vinegar bottle and do it with that. In fact, I did some photos, and Tash has got me, she's going to add them onto the website, aren't you, Tash?
I am indeed.
That she is. Now, here we go, the coloured sand. This is, because I've done quite a lot of these, I'm going to pour it in. But for yourself, I would suggest spooning it in so you don't put too much in at the moment, because you can put it in, it's very hard to take out. So we'll start here. And what I have done with some pictures that you'll see, I've used different layers of sand and I've done them at different angles. But the better you get, the better you'll be able to do this. Now, what you will need to do this, like I said, any spoon, anything with a flat end on to tamp it. And I did have to buy these long nose tweezers here. Because as I can see now, I'll put a bit of blue paper on there. I can see a bit of soil on the side. And it's good for doing that, if you can see what I mean. I mean, you can't get it perfect because the way nature is, and if it's outside or inside your house, something will get in and it will play around with the succulents and the stones. What we're going to do again, we're going to wet it again because we want the sand like fingers in glove. We don't want it to move around like that. We want it solid. Especially, I'm going to make a hole with the barbecue skewer to put the succulents in. Same again, move it away from any electrical items for safety reasons. And the sides, if there's any sand going up the sides, if you do that gently all the way around, it stops it going up the side. Then back on there. Now it's up to you whether you want to use this, because if you look at the width of that and the width of that, you've got to make a hole so that will fit in. Sometimes you might have to double that up like that and make it for that to let it go in. But we're going to do it in the middle. And I think we'll use that. I'm going to go down about 1 inch so that can sit on. And with succulents, as I found out after I did about 2 or 3, you have to put them in a clump. They work better in a clump because they can then fertilise each other. They then start to have babies. And you'll see where they are big ones in here, like that. You will start to get small ones and they'll start to grow. This here, because I'm lucky, this is an open top and it's quite big. I don't need my pliers, but I will show you. This is what I usually do. I get my long nose pliers like that, and in a long jar, that is how I would plant it. Just give it a little touch there. That's one in. Yeah? We'll try and get them as close as we can. This is number 2 going in. And same again, down into the soil. And when you're making the hole, just turn it a bit like that. And be very gentle taking it out because you've got soil and sand on there. We don't want it on the top. We'll do the same again. Use long nose pliers for the stem, facing down. And in we go. Now I'm not going to put one right at the back there because that's where our stones and slate will go. If you have anybody that's artistic in the family, get them to put the stones and the slate in. And we've got one more. I'm going to put one more. I think 3 for this jar is enough. I have brought 4, but I think 3 is enough. Because if they're having babies, as you know, you can't put 5 kids in a 2-bedroom house, can you? So, thank you, Tash, for that support. There we are. Now that's what we've done so far. We've got the 3 succulents in, and they will have babies. I guarantee you. And these stones I've got from my garden. I live in Llanelli, and some of them I've got tin in. But I've been here 5 years. I went on the internet and thought, what is this stone with this in? And it's tin. And that's what Llanelli used to be called back in the day, apparently. Tinopolis. So I'm using stone with tin in from Llanelli. I'm not usually good at this bit. A friend of mine or my wife will help me with this. But I'll stick them in. And we've got bits of slate as well. Just to give it a different look. Like a rustic look, if you will. But yeah, my wife will usually do this. We'll put all the stones around one side and allow growth around there. But you will find all sorts of stuff in here. We'll give it another spray so the sand stops the sand breaking up, it evens it out, if you can see. And I think, to be honest, I don't know, I think I might just put one more in. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to put any in. But I think it gives it more of a, like I say, a rustic, natural look, if you do. To be honest with you, we're going to clean off the bottom of the bowl. Not doing it that way, I'll end up there. We'll clean the bowl off. Stick that back on there. Now that is your succulent. Glass jar, that's a jar you would have thrown away, solar jar, like you would have thrown away. You can pick them up when you go for walks out in the outbacks there in the forest or in the woodland. You'll see them growing. You can even get bits of moss, which I've started to do now, even off the floor where it's damp in the driveway. Get a bit of moss, pop that in, and that will grow and give it a greenery around the side of the pot there where the rockery is. The rockery likes it. And it makes it look more natural and, like I say, more rustic. But give that a couple of days, let it settle in, and it'll look just like that one. When the coloured sand starts to dry out, it'll look even better, and the sand down there. And like I say, the better you get, the different coloured sands you can use. I use 3 or 4. I used a rainbow one when in February, I used about 4 or 5 different coloured ones as a rainbow for thank you to the NHS. But there you go. You can, in this one here, you can put what you want in the bottom of there. But as your beginners are just starting, concentrate on that. And if you see something you like that, you can either put coloured water in, crushed up stone, you could put sand in it. It's entirely up to you. And I think that concludes our session for today. Any questions, please write in, and feedback is always good. Ta-da!